Hello. Imagine yourself getting home from work. Since a kid, you've had the best education opportunities. You've gone through the grueling work of the K through 12 education system. It's a lot of hard work, but you made it through. And ultimately, you decide, you know what, I'm ready. You're going to commit yourself to 4 years of university. Now, this is a lot of work as well, but hey, we do it, you do it, you manage to graduate, and you know, you got a little bit of student debt, but you know your hard work is paying off. It's paying off so much, in fact, that this degree has landed you multiple job interviews. It's landed you so many job interviews that you're able to pick your dream job, you're able to pick the salary, and now you're not just financially secure, but the work that you do also keeps your spirit lifted. You might be thinking, what's missing? Until one day you meet the one. So now you meet the one and you're living in your own home. It's all yours, paid off. Your student debt is paid off and you manage to work yourself up to a nice senior position in your company. I mean, ultimately uh, this is the American dream, right? Like we all want a version of that. We can all agree that, working to fulfill your spirit and your finances, it's just it's a no-brainer. But today is just feeling a little out of reach, and it's feeling out of reach for a lot of people, and it's got a lot of people wondering to themselves or just asking themselves like, what can we do? Well, it might feel hopeless at times, but I know that at least we can start by having conversations about those that we've elected into power. And although I can't tell you how to vote, I strongly urge you, if you are considering to vote for a Republican candidate, I strongly urge you to reconsider that vote. That's because voting for Republican candidates tends to lead to policies that reduce economic opportunities, they limit your access to education, and they limit your access to affordable healthcare. Now, reduce economic opportunities. I know, I get it. You're probably thinking to yourself, I mean, the Republican candidates, conservatives, generally more importance on a good financial structure. I get it. And I'll give it to you in a sense that is true. I mean, as we can see here on Richard V. and Nicholas J.'s article published in July 19th, 2026 from The Independent, Um, mind you, this is a Texas-based news article. They mentioned that the rest states, their policies have sparked a bit of a wave of economic growth, and portion of this has to do with the fact that we've seen a lot of immigration from blue states to red states, and especially coming from economic superstars like South African billionaire immigrant Elon Musk. Now, having these billionaires in your state overall is going to raise the median household income. It's just going to happen. On top of that, red state policies generally favor lower income taxes and they provide less social services. By providing these less social services, they're going to tax you less, which ultimately means a little more money in your pocket. I get it. But further on in the article, they mentioned that not all red states are benefiting from these policies. Part of the reason is because there's no policy that supports labor wage growth. So, meaning minimum wages and just wages in general are stagnating, they're not growing. If you have a decent salary, you're probably good, but you're not going to see it grow. And especially if you're below that, you're not going to see it grow. And there's also no policy to prevent the move of this manufacturing and labor out to countries that have lower cost labor. So, red states like Pennsylvania, um, Ohio, Michigan, they're actually struggling and suffering because of these policies that is not protecting the labor in their own manufacturer heavy state. On top of that, red states also have lower levels of unionization. So it's a little bit of a give and take. You maybe can work something out, but you're giving up a little bit also. But if we take a look on the other side of the aisle, we have an example of an elected official that has helped economic growth for his citizens in his state. As we can see from Kayla's article published in December 19th, 2025 on calmatters.org, Governor Newsom has signed into law a $20 minimum wage for fast food workers. Fast food workers are technically considered low skill workers. So anytime you have low skill industry getting a wage increase, you're going to see other industries follow. So is the case with the healthcare industry. Because of these policies, healthcare workers are going to get $25 an hour. On top of that, hotel and airport employees are on their way to making $30 an hour just in time for the 2028 Olympics. So again, all I'm saying is, it's fair to say Republican states have had small wave of economic growth, but there is a little bit of give and take, and that's not even considering yet the educational landscape in these states. Now, I said, right, Republican candidates, they tend to enforce policies that limit access to your education. Well, as we can see here from Jonathan Feingold's article that he published on January 18, 2023 on theconversation.com, at least since 2020, at least 15 GOP, or in other words, Republican states, they have passed educational gag orders. An educational gag order is something that's made to curb classroom conversations about topics. Most like race is probably one of the biggest prevalent examples of that. And I mean, talking about race doesn't make you a racist. So I just think if having these conversations is good, it's good for you to build tolerance and just know history. And we see here that Ron DeSantis from Florida, he's no example. Governor Ron DeSantis passed the Stop Woke Act in November of 2022. This is an act that's just embedded with all sorts of anti-LGBT policy, book bans, and things like that. And it's ultimately been likened to a 19th century anti-literacy laws. Um, Again, it's just having certain conversations is, it's better to have a conversation and put things on the table and talk about it than it is to push it to the side, pretend like they're not there, and alienate people. That's just never going to work. Again, if we look on the other side of the aisle, though, we have somebody like Mayor Mamdani from New York City who is continuing to fund the Birth to Two initiative. The Birth to Two initiative is part of a broader Birth to Five initiative that is committing to providing free early childhood care and free early childhood education services across all five of these boroughs in New York City. And now I know you might be thinking, okay, it's only 120 children here or there. But in this case, it's not a false dilemma to ask you, would you rather have 120 children receiving this or zero? And if these sort of initiatives gain traction, they can grow, they can expand, they can maybe make it further other states, even expand within that city. Maybe it's more than 120, maybe tomorrow's 121. I mean, the growth of these things, the opportunity, and if we fail, you fail, and you got to try things. And here's an example of a mayor that's trying something. You got to, sometimes you fail and you pick yourself up, and it's not the end of the world. So at this point, I know what you might be thinking. Well, there's a few economic opportunities out there, and maybe I'm a little more well off. I can privatize my education, I can privatize my children's education. So maybe making a living in these Republican red states couldn't be so bad. Maybe I can make a living out there. And you might got a point, but is gonna be a little hard to make a living if you can't access healthcare when you need it. Not saying, I would never wish upon anyone to break an arm, but what happens if you break an arm and you can't afford the healthcare, right? Or you're denied care. I know it usually doesn't happen, right? Um, but here we have an article. So, just a little backstory. It usually takes a doctor, or usually it takes someone 7 to 11 years of education and training to become a doctor. And when you become a doctor, you take an oath. You want to help anybody. If you go to any hospital near a jail, you'll see inmates all the time. I mean, they're here to help anybody. And it's only been in red states where lately, and for the first time, medical professionals are hesitating to provide life saving medical care. This article by Andrea Gonzalez, she explains the story about Amber Nicole Thurman, who was denied medical care in August of 2022 in Georgia, and she passed away. The reason she was denied medical care is because she had a non viable pregnancy. This is something that was out of her control, something that was clearly killing her. Let's just put it not softly, bluntly, and it was killing her. And because ultimately on paper it would have come off as an illegal abortion, they were scared to provide her with the life saving medical care, and she passed away. I mean, it's real sad, you know. And as we see here from Gabby Hartney in November 18, uh, on the article she posted on the thirdway.org, we noticed that, you know, red states, although they are fighting to get rid of affordable care on the federal level, it's strange because they benefit more from affordable care than, you know, other states, other people in other states. But it's good to know that blue states are working on contingencies. They're fighting for a national affordable healthcare, but they're also enabling state level tax credits for their residents, you know, just as a bit of a contingency to try to alleviate some of that pressure. But hey, I get it. We're all here, we're all chasing the American dream. You know, me and you, we're not different. We're not different. We're not too much different from each other. We all have family we love. We all have goals. And I think really what it comes down to is just holding those in power accountable at the end of the day. It's true that Republican candidates promote policies that reduce economic opportunities, limit your access to education, and they limit access to affordable healthcare. And although nobody can tell you how to vote, I'm certainly not one to. I do think that it is important for yourself to consider the direction in which the Republican candidates are taking this nation and what the other side of the aisle is doing. And you got to ask yourself, what policies does your candidate support, and if these policies align with your morals. Thank you.